need to keep track of how many of these videos I open while semi-reading a book. How many is that? I don't know. Too many to keep track of. So, when I was a kid, back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, back in the aughts, so there's a museum in Omaha that is called the Joslyn Art Museum. And it has been around for quite a while. One of the high schools in Omaha is actually right next to it. The building itself is gorgeous and has a bunch of different styles all throughout the building. There's like a sculpture garden around it. I love going there. And when I was a kid, the artist, Dale Chihuly, who is very famous for like glass blowing, he also does paintings. Come on, I got a painting here. He also does paintings. Dude's also cool. He rides a motorcycle and has an eye patch from when he got into a motorcycle accident at some point in his youth. But he does glass blowing and all types of stuff like that. Or he has a shop where he trains glass blowers and then he uses them to help make the various installations and pieces and stuff like that that have gone up all over the world. That have, that he is famous for. And I've seen multiple or a couple of different installations of his, or at least exhibits that are from him. And when I was a kid, he was actually an artist in residence for a little while at the Joslyn Art Museum in Omaha. And my parents took me there, and I adored getting to see so many of the different like they had like workshops set up there, so I think we kind of got to go on a tour of those. We got to see a ton of, this is one of the postcard books I think I got way back when, of a bunch of his stuff. That's just old postcards I need to put somewhere else. And this, here's a better picture of it, is one of the installations that he put in at the Joslyn Art Museum. There was also another one, that is this one. Different styles. They the one that is the multi-piece one. They did a renovation on the museum this past year and a half, and we have not had the chance to go back yet. So I don't know if the pieces are still in the same spots, but one was at one end of the building when you walk in, and you can like see it as you walk in. It's like kind of like stained glass windows set up a little bit, and then you can go up to it when you go inside. And then the other one was like at the other end of like the big main hallway that they have there, the entrance hall, and you could go back and see that one, like you would like sit under it while you were eating, is where it was. And I adored this. I loved these pieces. I thought they were so beautiful. I love going and seeing them every time that we are there. And I love going them. Seeing them. They're so beautiful. The exhibit that they had on him, I loved. Years ago when my mom and I went down to Oklahoma City, I believe they had an exhibit there that was also Dale Chihuly, and I loved getting to see those. It was different pieces. He works in, does like big pieces, smaller pieces, the paintings, all of that stuff, and I loved it. And like my parents know that I still love it. We've watched a couple of like documentaries about Chihuly and everything, and I just thought that was so cool about the idea of like blowing glass and pulling it into all of these different shapes and molding it and all of that type of stuff. Like have them be so thin and fragile, and other ones were like big and chunky but still gorgeous. And like just like this whole idea of just like seeing all of these different pieces and everything, and I thought they were just gorgeous. Like he's just done like different installations all over the world that are just gorgeous. Like in the bottom of swimming pools, people have hired him to do that. He's done just like courtyards filled with like the giant glass orbs that he does, or just like random giant spikes from hell. Different things like that. All in order to make these beautiful artworks and train these different artists so that way they can go and do it themselves and stuff like that, or start their own workshops. And I thought they were gorgeous. I've always thought they were gorgeous. And about 2 years ago, my mom and I got the chance to do a glass pendant making class here in town. And I made these. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was fun. Obviously not on the level of like glass blowing, because that takes a lot more skill than like what they're comfortable teaching random people how to do in like an hour. But I've loved glass blowing and all of that ever since. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to make a glass devil fruit, because I just thought it was something that was just such a really good idea. And I know that other people have made variations of a glass devil fruit before. You can literally get like blown glass made versions of devil fruits, or like pressed glass, like the molds and stuff like that, that I think are just gorgeous. I just don't have the money for them, nor a safe place to want to store them if I did have them. And so I'm like, you know, I've been thinking about trying to do a glass devil fruit for a while, and I decided I'm just going to make one. As I said, other people have made their own one. There's one that I'm going to link to here that's called the Rasa Rasa no Mi, that literally just translates to the glass fruit. I went a slightly different route with it, with the naming context, with the naming setup. And it is a logia, because glass is a naturally occurring element. Naturally occurring element, just the way that like sand and fire and snow and stuff like that are. So what I did was I actually named it the Karinku no Mi, or the Clink devil fruit, as in like glass clinking together. That whole concept, instead of it being just like the glass devil fruit, because it's like Mara is fire fruit, the sand fruit, the snow fruit, different things like that, or the Hiya no Mi is like the chili fruits. And then we have Inaru's fruit, the Goro no Mi, that is the rumble fruit, which is based off of the sound, the onomatopoeia that thunder makes, as opposed to like just it being like the thunder fruit, or the lightning no Mi. And I liked that idea, and and Oda does that when it comes to some of the different devil fruits, so I went with that one instead. And the way that I designed it is this. This is supposed to be kind of based on like a stained glass window, because I love stained glass windows. This is real glass. It's like sea glass. Ooh, do not break. So it's the perler bead outline to represent like the outside of, like the pieces that are designed to hold the stained glass window together, and then like just, like the different, little bead mancala pieces, and then this is like broken sea glass and stuff like that. And then this is actually obsidian, because obsidian is volcanic glass. It's naturally occurring glass. If you watch Game of Thrones, it's dragon glass, which is cool. And I was like, okay, I want to put like a piece of actual obsidian in this. So I was trying to think of like, okay, where could I go get obsidian? Michael's didn't have what I needed. So I'm like, okay, where can I get obsidian that's not going to be exceedingly expensive? So we have a place here in town called Euphoria that is very much, kind of holistic medicine and like lots of fun fashion and carvings and different things like that. Fun place to go. And I'm looking around, and I asked, okay, I am looking for obsidian. What do you guys have? And she, shows me where they have, chipped obsidian that's, polished, and, other bigger polished pieces of obsidian. And she's like, and then we have this raw obsidian over here. And I'm, looking at the stuff, and I'm like, well, I'm going to be smashing it. I told her, I was just okay, I'm doing an art piece, and I need to smash the obsidian. And she's like, okay, we have bigger pieces here. And that was the raw obsidian. And I could smash the other ones, too. Obsidian is glass. It can be easily smashed, as I proved. But I was like, okay, I need something that I'm not going to feel bad about smashing with one of the hammers we have in the garage. And I was like, okay. So looking around, and I ended up getting 2 pieces of just, the unpolished uncut, really obsidian, and I smashed one of them, and I made this one with part of it, and then I made the other one that will be sent to teching as well. They are both a little different. The outside is the same, and this part is the same, but these are all kind of different in it because like none of the glass pieces are the same size, so they're all a little bit different in color and shape, and they're not sharp, but it's still like, it's, you know, the part of the design for the devil fruit that I came up with, like, well, it's based on a stained glass window that's kind of shaped like a star, but it does also still look sharp. So, you know, some of the other devil fruits that we've had, like the Goro Goro no Mi, or Kids Devil Fruit, the Magnet Devil Fruit, they look like they are sharp and not the nicest things to eat. Or even Crocodile's Devil Fruit looks like a cactus. So it's like, again, not the best looking thing to eat in the world. So we have that. From there are other variations in that, and I love that idea. And I was like, okay, so what are some of the things that you could do with glass? So I was like looking up glass, and glass is a amorphous or non-crystalline solid, as in, because of the fact that like it can be molded and stuff like that. It can be very easily melted down and reformed and changed into whatever shape you want it. And it's usually transparent. It's chemically inert, which is why it's used in a lot of like chemistry sets and like the, you know, science labs and stuff like that, because it's not going to react to other chemicals most of the time, or a chemical has to be exceedingly acidic or exceedingly strong to even cause a little bit of damage to the glass container that it's in. So that's like why a lot of those science equipment pieces and stuff like that are made of glass, because it's chemically inert. It's a widespread thing. It has a lot of practical and technological and decorative uses for window panes, tableware, optics, you know, glasses that you just wear. It's in computers, it's in cameras, mirrors, lots of art, as I said. It's in like your windshield, it's in like the window in the, right over here, all of that type of stuff. Glass is so many different places, and so we're so used to it most of the time. Even like the screens on our phone are made of glass to some degree. Yes, some of it is like chemically adjusted to make it a little bit stronger, but still made of glass. And so there's all of that. And then there are lots of other types of things that go into being the more natural side of things, where you have other naturally occurring types of glass. The most notable is obsidian. And then a lot of the things that came in for inspiration for this is the rose window in Notre Dame, which I really want to go see one day. I've loved the idea of that window ever since I was a kid, and I saw the movie, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I talked about this when I did the Hunchback of Notre Dame review, where you have Esmeralda singing God Help the Outcast, and that ends with her surrounded in the light of the rose window, and I love that and everything. And the thing with a glass devil fruit is that, yes, it would qualify as a logia. A lot of people tend to make it a logia because it is a naturally occurring thing. And even by chance, if it didn't quite qualify as a logia, it might be one of the ones that would be like close enough to a special paramecia, the way that like katakuri's is. So it could kind of go either way in my opinion, but I just went with logia because I haven't really made any other logias, I don't think, throughout the course of these various video ones that I've made for the perler bead ones. And so I decided to go with logia, and it, so it kind of lands in that category, and I just thought that was a really fun way of doing it. And the thing is that obviously, like any logia, like the same thing with like the general standard strength supply of like, you're kind of invulnerable to various attacks unless the person has hockey, or you can like shift your body out of the way pretty easily type of a thing, the way that we see various characters do when they're attacked. They're able to, like physically rearrange their body if need be, or, move their body in order to avoid the attack. Different things like that. So we see a lot of that, and this would apply to this devil fruit as well. Also, it falls into the category of being able to make things with the devil fruit, because we see, well, it kind of, this is where I say it falls into like the special paramecia setup as to a degree as well, because we know that like Crocodile can make stuff out of his sand. He just tends to use it more for like sandstorm effects, or like his, you know, little sand blades and stuff like that, which still work. Monette does similar things with her devil fruit as well. Whereas you have Aokiji, who will literally like form, you know, giant, you know, he has like the giant bird that he'll form out of his stuff. Or even Kizaru will do like his lightsaber thing, so that gives him a weapon made out of his Logia ability and out of his element. So a lot of that stuff would apply to this as well, where you can have someone use use this devil fruit to create like glass weapons. Insert your Skyrim reference here for however much you want. I've played Skyrim a little bit. I liked the glass weapons. I thought they were very pretty. But like being able to make like, you know, weapons out of glass, and then the same thing would apply of just like, oh, well, if you know hockey, you can then apply hockey to the weapon, and it gives you the shape of the weapon, cover it in hockey, and now you have a giant hockey stick. Pun intended. And you're able to use that against your opponent. Or in whatever case you needed. Also, you know, the way that this devil fruit would probably kind of work is like, you would have to, of course, obviously practice with it like you would have to do with any type of devil fruit, regardless of it being Paramecia, Zoan, or Logia, or some variation of any of those. You would still have to practice with it. There is no argument about that. And if you practice enough, you would probably get to the point where you could be able to make tempered glass, or glass that would be on the level of like bulletproof glass, or different things like that that you could then just enhance even further as you train better. You could also just do really fun things of having, you know, like the way Perospero is with his candied fruit, of like just in random colors, random combination, and beautiful thing for you to look at. Don't like Perospero as a character? Gotta admit, he knows how to use his devil fruit. No argument here on that one. So there's that type of stuff that would go along with this as well. And like the person who like made this other version of the glass fruit, the Rasu no Mi, as I said, link in the description for that one. They came up with a bunch of different attacks and stuff like that like the person who has the devil fruit in their fan thing is able to do. Similar things would be able to apply to this one. You could make various types of weapons or various other items, particularly if you were very good at being very detailed in how you would form something. We know that Aokiji is able to use his devil fruit to literally like freeze people, the way that he did to Saul, and the way that past users possibly used it on other characters, and things like that. So we see that. This one wouldn't quite be able to do the same thing, because wrapping someone in glass is not the same thing as being able to, you know, put them in ice and literally freeze them. But it would be useful if you needed to do something where, like, this would be a good one to have if you have to go underwater. Because you can still, like, make essentially, like, if you have enough ability and you're good enough with it and have really good at making everything watertight, you could make yourself a giant, like, glass suit for you to go underwater in and walk around, and you'd be fine. As long as you're careful with how much pressure is on it. Like in at the beginning of Jaya, where the Straw Hats, you know, they dive down in like the suits that Usopp made for Sanji and Zoro and Luffy, and they went down to like the wreckage of the ship of the Saint Brice. And, you know, so we get that type of a thing. Again, standard weaknesses apply as well. It's still weak to water if you're in too much water type of a thing. Different things like that. I was trying to think if there was anything else specifically that would go along with it as a weakness. Fire would definitely be a weakness, so any of the heat-based devil fruits, the Marimara no Mi, the Magu Magu no Mi, the Netu Netu no Mi that Oven has, those would qualify as things that the glass would be weak to. Although, you know, again, it's like all types of devil fruits have like the natural weakness type of a thing. That would kind of be that one there, would be any of the heat-based devil fruits. And as I said, glass is fragile, but if you're training enough with it, you're able to use it. But this doesn't need to be an overpowered devil fruit. It can be one that have a lot of different types of functions in regards to being able to make stuff with it, make some weapons out of it, just make beautiful jewelry out of it, or make statues, or different things like that. It could be very good in the hands of a very creative minded person, to be able to make that type of stuff. But that doesn't mean that there wouldn't be combat capabilities to it. I mean, you look at Brulee's devil fruit with the Mira Mira no Mi, and she is, you would think she wouldn't have a lot of combat capabilities with it, but she's very good at being able to use her mirrors to be able to set up traps for people and things like that. So there's like that type of setup here. And that would also apply for this devil fruit as well. Or for where she makes like the clones or, mirrors someone, like she did with Luffy. She has come up with various ways of combat capabilities. Other characters have come up with ways of having their devil fruit that may not necessarily on the surface appear to have a lot of combat capability. They work on trying to come up with a type of combat capability. I mentioned in the construction one there is Viola's devil fruit that has is more better for like surveillance, observation, espionage, different things like that. But it does have some types of, offensive capabilities with her whale tears. This thing would have a bit more offensive capabilities, particularly if you're fighting against people who don't know about hockey or at least haven't trained enough in hockey, and you'd be able to use it that way in order to still fight against them. And the thing is, and this is kind of going off of one of the lines that Mihawk has when he's training Zoro in how to use hockey. And I think it's talking about the fact that Zoro's blades are kind of chipped. And that means that if a really good swordsman is really good with his hockey, his blades will not be chipped. There will be no damage on the blades because you're always using hockey on your blades to make them even stronger and to protect your blades. Now, that may very well have been something that I completely just dreamt up for all I know, or it's something that was only in the anime and not in the actual manga. I'm not sure. But the same thing would apply here. Is if you have, if you're able to make glass weaponry and your hockey is strong enough to be able to keep that glass weaponry from breaking, then you've got pretty dang good armament hockey there. And same thing if you'd be able to channel the Ryuo techniques through it and stuff like that, the way that, Luffy learns how to do with his sandals, and things like that. Or the way that we see Roger and, Whitebeard do with their swords, or different things like that. Do with their weapons, where you're able to channel more power into it to the point where there's not even touching the opponent's weapon. So there's that type of a thing there that would also apply to this, like it does with a lot of other devil fruits in One Piece. But again, it falls under the same general rules of Logia. There is a natural element to it in the fact that it is fire, which is also the natural element to the ice devil fruit and the snow devil fruit, and to a degree the wood devil fruit that Aramaki has, the forest one. So still kind of qualifies as fire and heat are still kind of the more just overpowering types of devil fruits. So there's that. But sometimes it's also just if you're really creative, you might be able to come up with something. The thing that I would point out when it comes to as a way to try to get around some of that heat is if you're dealing with someone who has a fire devil fruit and you happen to trap them inside of something that has glass, and you're able to completely cut off the air supply, that technically would work on being able to extinguish their fire. Something like that would qualify. But there's, other cases where it's just that depends on how quickly is the air going to run out, different things like that. You don't want to necessarily kill the person, you just want to knock them out. And then that power wouldn't apply to using it against Oven or using it against Akainu, because magma doesn't necessarily need oxygen. all of the time, and it would probably melt through any glass you put it in before you had the chance to actually, like, you know, get rid of all, before it burned up all of the air inside of the thing. Oh god. I just had a weird thought from one of the science experiments we did, or that we had to do at one point in time in school. It's one of the experiments where it's supposed to prove that plants produce oxygen, and it's, you take a plant and you take a candle, a lit candle, and you put them in a glass, a glass covering to, like, get rid of all of the air inside of it. And the way that you can prove that, well, the plant will still do, is still making oxygen, is because the candle is still burning. And I'm like, you better make sure that's one damn airtight thing that you have that in there to prove that. But like that type of an experiment. And then my mind went to, if you put Sabo and Aramaki, told them they can't fight, and then put them in a giant glass dome that is airtight, by a technicality, I guess that could work, because Aramaki can make his plants grow and they would still produce oxygen by, you know, eating the, you know, eating the carbon dioxide that Sabo would give off with his fire, plus just breathing in general, so maybe. But I'm like, that seems a bit extreme, and something Vegapunk would have at least considered trying to do at some point in time. So I just like that idea. So glass devil fruit, I really liked how this turned out. Not quite the way I wanted it, and then like this is all held in place with like resin, so yay, more resin. So that's what we have there. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.